People who don't like celebrations, birthdays, parties, special days. If that's what made you click, you're in the right place. See this woman on her birthday, everyone expected her to be happy. The cake was ready. The candles were lit, people were smiling. But inside, all she wanted was to disappear. If you've ever felt like an actor in your own celebration, that feeling isn't a flaw. It's a signal. And it's the key to understanding the psychology behind people who don't like celebrations. And here's what most people get wrong. They think it's about personality or mood or being antisocial. It's not. For many people, celebrations create a specific kind of psychological pressure, one that most people never notice. But once you do, you can't unsee it. Because it explains why some people feel drained, misunderstood, or even guilty for skipping moments that are supposed to feel happy. And if you've ever felt that conflict, this will make sense in a way nothing else ever has. The misunderstanding. Most people think avoiding celebrations means the same thing for everyone. They assume it's about being introverted or antisocial or emotionally distant. But psychologically, that's a mistake. Because people don't avoid celebrations for one single reason. They avoid them for different reasons, coming from different internal patterns. And when you group all of them together, you miss what's actually happening. For some people, the problem isn't the celebration itself. It's the noise, the stimulation, the emotional intensity. For others, it's the expectation to react a certain way, to smile, to show gratitude, to perform joy. And for some, it's something deeper, a quiet discomfort they've felt for years but never had language for. Once you see these patterns clearly, something changes. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" And you start asking, "Which pattern do I fit into?" That's where the real understanding begins. The emotional overload type. The first type is the emotional overload type. These are people who don't avoid celebrations because they dislike people. They avoid them because their system processes everything at once. The sounds, the conversations, the expectations, the movement in the room. Nothing comes in gently. Everything arrives at full volume. So even before the celebration starts, their body is already tired. They think about the noise, the small talk, the constant interaction, and their energy drops. Not because they're weak, not because they're anxious, but because their nervous system doesn't filter stimulation the same way. For this type, celebrations feel like emotional multitasking. Too many signals, too many inputs, too little space to breathe. And when they finally leave, they don't feel fulfilled. They feel drained. If celebrations exhaust you even when nothing bad happens, if you need hours or even days to recover afterward, this pattern might feel familiar. The forced performance type. The second type is the forced performance type. These are people who don't avoid celebrations because they feel nothing. They avoid them because they feel too much to fake it. For this type, the hardest part isn't being there. It's being expected to react in a specific way. To smile at the right moment, to look grateful, to appear happy on schedule. Even when the intention is good, the pressure feels wrong. Because their emotions don't move on command. They don't switch on joy just because the moment demands it. So when a celebration turns into a performance, something inside them resists. Not out of rebellion, but out of honesty. They would rather be quiet than pretend. They would rather step away than act a feeling they don't fully feel. If you've ever thought, "I don't want to fake this," if you've ever felt guilty for not matching the expected reaction, this pattern might sound familiar. The third type is the meaning over ritual type. These are people who don't reject celebrations emotionally. They reject them symbolically. For this type, the problem isn't the people, or the noise, or the attention. It's the ritual itself. The date on the calendar, the repeated script, the expectation that meaning must happen because the day says so. They value connection, depth, and authenticity. And when those things are reduced to a scheduled moment, something feels empty. They don't feel closer just because it's a birthday. They don't feel more grateful just because it's a holiday. To them, meaning can't be summoned by tradition. It has to be real, spontaneous, and sincere. If you've ever thought, "I don't need a special day to care deeply," if rituals feel louder than the emotion behind them, this pattern might feel familiar. The fourth type is the emotional memory type. These are people who don't avoid celebrations in the present. They avoid them because of what celebrations remind them of. Past moments where expectations were high, but connection was missing. Times when they showed up, smiled, participated, and still felt invisible. For this type, celebrations carry emotional residue. Not pain in a dramatic sense, but a quiet heaviness. A memory of being surrounded by people and still feeling alone. So over time, their system learns something simple. It's safer to step back than to hope and feel disappointed again. If certain celebrations bring up a subtle discomfort you can't fully explain, if avoiding them feels calmer than attending, this pattern might feel familiar. Here's what changes when you understand this. Before, most people feel guilt. They think, I should enjoy this. I should be more grateful. I should be different. But psychologically, this isn't a failure, it's a pattern. A pattern in how your nervous system and emotional system respond to social rituals. Once you see it that way, the guilt starts to loosen. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start understanding how your system actually works. Here's the important part. None of these are flaws. None of them mean something is wrong with you. That's why two people can be in the same celebration, one feeling energized, the other feeling drained, one feeling connected, the other feeling pressured. They're not reacting to the same thing. They're experiencing it through completely different internal filters. Some people recognize themselves clearly in one type. Others feel pieces of more than one. That's normal. By the way, because a lot of people ask why they feel like this, I left something pinned in the comments. It's there if you need it. Now, let me finish this thought. If you saw yourself in one of these patterns, or in more than one, that doesn't mean you're difficult or broken or missing something. It means your system is honest with itself. Some people celebrate loudly. Others celebrate quietly. Some don't celebrate at all. None of these are superior. They're simply different ways of relating to emotion and meaning. So if you ever skip a celebration, it doesn't mean you don't care. Sometimes it means you care deeply, just differently. And if you noticed yourself thinking, that one was me, or I'm a mix of two, you're not alone. That realization alone already changes how they see themselves. And when people share that, something interesting happens. They realize they're not alone.